So I started reading an older David Gemmell novel, Knights of Dark Renown. It's definitely not Gemmell's finest, but it does have those flickers of brilliance that, oh my God, that you'd expect from a Gemmell novel. And one thing I've never done when I've read something is kind of try and study the writing a bit. I've always tried to be a bit of a pure reader, where I guess at no point am I trying to think ahead or anticipate what is being shown to me, or I'm kind of just taking it all for face value, and maybe I've just gotten old enough, or older, and I guess I'm just taking a different approach now. So I'm just analyzing the scenes a little bit more, if you will. Looking at the scenes a lot more, and there's things that he's doing that I don't like, that I don't think are good for Gemmell, and there's things that he does great. One thing that he does great, of course, is Gemmell's never boring. He's never boring. If anything, he's too quick. And I feel like one of the flaws with Knights of Dark Renown is he's got a little bit too much going on. But there's still those moments that really showcase some of his talent. One of my favorite scenes, I just read it. It's about 2 pages. You've got you got a poet, Nuad, who's there, and Gemmell writes poets and storytellers really well. If anybody read his Troy series, they're like Shield of Thunder, Lord of the Silver Bow, Fall of Kings. Anyway, that's the one where it's set in, you know, like the Greek War or whatever, in the city of Troy with Achilles and all that. That's his best one. And Odysseus is a main character in that book, and Odysseus is a tremendous storyteller. I think he wrote that around 2006. He died writing that book. My point is, Nuad is, you know, the precursor to what he would do in Odysseus. One of the things with David Gemmell is every book's the same. Every single book's the same, in a good way. And he's got this outlaw, and he's got the poet in like a mead hall almost. And he really condenses the scene. He says there's about 70 or 80 men gathered, and all eyes are on him. And I think that this is a great example. Oh, dear. Jesus. There's 3 deer over there. Good Lord. You should show, not tell. You know what I mean? I would rather have you, I guess, described, or rather just show me what's going on rather than explain to me an exposition. That's, you know, that's something you can do. In this sequence, I think telling the reader what's happening is a little bit better because it keeps the scene quick. This is just my opinion. It just really resonated with me. To give you an example, there are sequences like, we'll take Song of Ice and Fire. There's a feasting moment where George Martin, and that's just his style, he's going to go to great lengths to describe every single piece of food available in this banquet, and it's like 90 of them, and it's just paragraph after paragraph after paragraph after paragraph, and it probably took him a week just to research all the food. I couldn't even name you off that many food items. My point is, it drags on, and I'm out of it. You just described a full page of what's on the table, whereas in this scene, Gemmell doesn't explain any of that. He doesn't even give any real description as to what this space looks like. We just know it's some type of a wood cabin, long haul type thing in the woods, filled with a bunch of outlaws. Perfect. 70, 80 men are there. They all become faceless. They're background noise, and we zoom in on the outlaw, Arian, which is like his love interest. She's this girl that's around, and then Nuad, who's the poet. And it's about 2 pages, and he hops up on a table, and Gemmell doesn't say a word. He doesn't say a single word or write a single word that the poet says. He leaves it all up to you as the reader, and he simply just describes what the poet's saying, and these are what the tales are about. And then he has to go to Arian's little perspective, which is just, you know, maybe a few lines of, she noticed that he read the room, and he tailored the stories to be about men fighting against a kingdom, and they were all like a rags to riches type thing. So you can see right there within a few lines what Nuad's doing. You know, he's very clever. He's able to spin a room. We've seen it from the outlaw leader's perspective that, you know, the flattery that this man's giving him, Nuad is, the poet is giving the outlaw, is so great. He's unable to, even though he knows some of it's bullshit, he loves hearing it. So for 2 pages, we've just got Gemmell telling you what this man's poetry is, and his stories and the sagas that he's talking about, and it's moving every single person in the room, and they're just held rapt attention, and it's quick. And that is, I think, one of my favorite parts about it, is that you didn't need to drag me through 45 pages to do that. You didn't need to give me an entire book on this outlaw's history and his childhood and the things that he's fought through and struggled, which I think some fantasy writers, they get stuck in. They especially with epic fantasy. Now, David Gemmell's different. It's heroic fantasy. But it's digestible. Now, you could definitely probably make the scene better. You could make it longer. You could do a lot with it. It's not perfect. But I think it's a standout moment in Knights of Dark Renown, because Gemmell's able to do what Gemmell does best and really focus on some storytelling through the character's perspective. The character's telling these stories, but also leaving enough up to the reader. He's assuming that you are smart enough to fill in these gaps. Think of it like, I think what I've been trying to do lately, and this is probably nothing new, but what I notice that a Gemmell might be doing is, it's almost like, imagine a play. Imagine a Marvel movie and a play. Maybe the Marvel movie is not a great comparison for an epic fantasy, but in a Marvel movie, you're getting a lot. You're getting so much spectacle and CG, and everything's blowing up and it's on fire on the background, and oh my god. Whereas if we were doing it on a stage, there might be a painted background, 2, 3, 4 characters setting it, and you're drawn in. It's almost as if the world shrinks. And I think Gemmell and myself, I try and copy this. It really helps the scene where we're going to condense it. We're going to maybe, if I'm having my characters entering a log cabin, for example, like, it's a log cabin, so I could go on for 3 pages about the size and the bore of the timber and the nails, and they came from the Far East, and 300 years ago when a great war took it, that's why the roof tips are singed, and you could go on and on and on and on about the stoves and the pots and the pans and the food. And does that matter? To some people it does, for sure. But does that really matter for the scene? What's the scene about? 2 characters, more than likely. Let's just narrow it down. We've got 2 characters in a cabin, they're talking. Well, let's maybe give one highlight to that. Maybe there's a fire. Maybe we can describe that fireplace a little bit. Go into just again, give me some of that as the reader, but then let the reader take the rest over. Like, we are, as the reader, capable of imagining things when we're reading a book, right? I think that's a long-winded way about, I don't think that you need as much as you think you need to describe a scene. I think growing up, I would read like really flowery or long-winded prose, and you would think that that's good writing. I actually think that's how Aragon starts. I think Christopher Paolini? Aragon was just fantasy Star Wars, but it doesn't matter. I liked Aragon. Aragon starts, though, and it's like 2 pages of him describing a fucking tree. Why? And I remember I read that, and I was like, and I was young, I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. This is amazing. And then you come back to it now, and you realize, like, we just wasted a lot of time there. We don't need to do that to set a scene. You could have just said it's a fucking tree. Right? I know what a tree looks like. You can. I'm not saying it was even bad. I haven't read Aragon in freaking 2 decades almost, probably longer. But my point is, you probably don't need that many words to describe something or set a scene. I think Stephen King he's got a lot, but there's a few pages in It, I think, where he really dials in maybe like what's in someone's medicine cabinet, and I think that can be effective. Or if like you really want to go to your way to describe 30 different medications, if there's a purpose to it, where instead of just saying like, hey, there's a lot of fucking medicine in there, or maybe you're trying to be comedic about it, like maybe you can do that as well. But it's just, I think less is more, especially in fantasy. Fantasy can get so big. Funny, I always talk about less is more and scene length and stuff, yet I find I just ramble in these videos. I got a lot to say. How many times you got to hear me say, don't just give me less. Give me less is what I'm trying to say. I think that's the best way to do it, and I think that was the genius of David Gemmell, is that he didn't need 700, 800, 900 pages to do it. I still think Sword in the Storm is one of the greatest pieces of fantasy literature ever. Love it. I think that's the best one. Midnight Falcon was really good as well. That was the sequel. The other 2 after. There was moments in Ravenheart. Long story short, guys, my whole point is try and condense the scene into the bare minimum to get your point across. This is specifically in dialogue. You can't always do this, but specifically in dialogue, try and narrow that focus down. I really like the idea that it's a play. It's on a stage, and and let the reader use their imagination. Assume people aren't fucking stupid. They're reading, so they're probably a little bit smarter. It's not romantasy, fucking dragon riders and fae daddies and shit. Try and just focus on the few characters that are there and exactly what is going on. Let's not lose ourselves in the description of a scene, in the furniture, and the architecture, and the history. And for sure, there are moments when you will have to do that, especially in fantasy, especially with your world building. I completely understand that. But at the same time, if it's a cabin in the woods, it's a cabin in the woods, right? Now, if it's a cabin in the woods that we're going to be visiting for a long time, for sure, flesh it out. But if it's just basically a prop, maybe that's a good example. If it's just a prop, if it's a one-off, if we're really never going to be coming back here and we're just at someone's hut, we're at a town, we're at a house, we're at a whatever, we're at an inn, right? Even the inns. We can all imagine what like a classic fantasy medieval tavern looks like. Or like, the classic Star Wars sci-fi cantina. We all know exactly what that looks like. So we don't need 10 pages of description to explain all of the drinks and the colors and the sounds and the people. Focus in, narrow it, keep it short and sweet. Not like me in these videos, but that's all I wanted to say. Knights of Dark Renown, David Gemmell, not his best, but there's these moments in it. We'll come back to Knights of Dark Renown, though, because I've been doing that a lot lately, and I think I want to make probably a little bit more focused video. A little bit more focused, probably hit some bullet points, keep it concise. Do that with your writing, and you'll probably do better than I'm talking.